20 odd years ago, when I was working in the Osaka area, I worked for a large petrochemical company as an English teacher, and I resided in their dormitories and spent my days at the factory. I woke up early, went with all the other salarymen, young salarymen, unmarried salarymen. I lived in a single man's dorm, and I would go to the cafeteria, have my breakfast, and then go to the place of work and do our morning exercises, and then sit in the office. And back then it was more old style. You had the office ladies, the OLs, that ran around in their little uniforms and served us tea and made copies, and I dare say we're little more than servants serving ornamental servants. I mean, really, that was the case back then. This is old school, when the men did the work and the women were there. The office ladies were there to serve and to find husbands. And I know that sounds a bit inflammatory, but that was what I saw, and that's what I experienced, and that's what I've seen or heard. It was basically the case in old school Japan. It's not like that anymore. Women have more opportunities, and women can actually be in the place of work. And it was always different in places like schools, where women played a more significant role. But in workplace, I'm talking old Japan. I'm talking post-war type of era, and also probably before the war as well. But I'm talking about basically our parents' generation and our grandparents' generation. And I want to talk now about what I was just watching on TV. My daughter had the TV on as we were getting ready to go, and she was watching for the weather, and there was a commercial on, and there was a young man in an office, and drinking a can. It was a coffee commercial, and a salaryman, and he was drinking a can of coffee, and a lovely young woman, OL, in a red uniform, came up and snatched the can of coffee away from his hand and drank it, and she looked so pretty, and then a whole host of OLs showed up behind her, all pretty young things, and were taking sips of the coffee, and he wanted it so bad, and he said, "Chodai, can I have it?" And then an old man came up beside him. "Sure, here." And he had a cup too. And he said, no, to that. But what made me remember was how the lesson I had learned about how when I was working in that company, that I was told that many of these young women, they come into the company. The reason they were all young was they would come into the company basically to spend some time to find a husband. There are all these eligible young bachelors. Think about the situation in Japan, where the men go immediately out from high school to university, study like heck, and they get immediately hired into a company where they devote their lives and have no life outside of the company. How are those men going to find wives, suitable wives to start a family with, if they have no chance outside of the company? Well, witness the OL, who is a young, eligible, pretty young woman who gets hired into the company to basically work as an office lady, basically making copies and serving tea, circulating amongst all the young male employees, and then it's the job of the bosses to bring them together. I've actually been told that by Japanese people, by bosses, that it's my job to help them find a match and to bring them together, and then they get married, and then the boss, the section chief who runs that particular area, he'll look after his young men under his charge and try to match them up with a suitable OL. And then when they get married, he'll basically have been what's called the nakoto, the go-between, so to speak. Although the nakoto word goes way, way back. Look at these pretty flowers. It goes way, way back to old Japan, when the older women with the village would act as the go-betweens, find the matchmaker for the arranged marriages. So anyway, the section chief would have a place of honor at the wedding, and would make a speech and all the like, and it would be a great place. Now I have first-hand experience with that. I was in fact a nakoto. When that company that I was working with in Osaka, I was I hope I'm saying the word right. It's been a long time since I've used that word. When I was working as an English teacher, and I had a young man who he was working, we were working together. I was assigned a young man in the company as my aide, my liaison with the company. And his job was to help coordinate the lessons and like, because I was there full-time at that company. And he had a fancy for a young student of mine in one of the classes, a young OL. And I made efforts to get them together, give them opportunities to talk and get to know one another. And guess what? They wound up getting married, and I was given that place of honor as the go-between, so to speak. I was the one that brought them together, not the section chief, and I got the honors thus associated. And this is partially how I learned about this system of the Japanese young salaryman finding a wife through the benefaction of his boss, and from the available pool of pretty young OLs that were frolicking use the word frolic, but in some ways it seemed that way because they were putting themselves on display. I mean, it was so blatant sometimes. They're basically looking for a man. I mean, this is flies. I mean, this is going to make feminists mad at me, but that's basically what it was. They were there looking for a man, and basically the way that kind of worked is they would sometimes quit as soon as they got married, but even if they stayed on after they got married, they definitely quit as soon as they got pregnant. You never saw any big-bellied OLs running around because they were all gone. You never saw any middle-aged OLs running around because they were all gone too. They got married off. Rarely, once in a while, you'd see a matron hanging around, but that was a really, really rare thing, and probably a bit uncomfortable for her as well and her employees. It was usually a bevy of and I keep saying the word, but pretty young, primped up. I didn't say pimped up. I said primped up. Young women waiting to get married. That's what I saw. That's what I lived in, and that's what I had shown to me successively over the years in Japan. And I saw it this morning so amply illustrated in that commercial where all these pretty young women, and the young man was so taken by them. And then his hopes dashed when his older man showed up to offer him a cup of coffee. This is an element that was once a part of Japan, is still a part of Japan, and will probably remain a part of Japan for a long time, as long as the men give their life up to the company and have little chance to find women outside the corporation, and as long as the corporation sees themselves as the overseers and benefactors of their lives, and as long as young women want an opportunity to marry an up-and-coming salaryman who will give them the life that they want as well, or at least the one that they both think that they want. Because really here it is about, there's not a lot of personal choice. It's basically you follow the status quo, but don't we all? There you go. Take care, everybody. Have a great day. I'm about to go in and do my OL thing, my salaryman thing. Bye-bye.